Well, the acting leader of Hezbollah says the group will not be defeated and that it has the right to attack anywhere inside Israel. Naim Qassem made the declaration in a televised address on Tuesday. He also said the only solution to the spiralling violence in the Middle East is a ceasefire. Cross-border fire between Israel and Hezbollah continued on Tuesday. According to Lebanese officials, more than a dozen hospitals are now completely or partially shut down because of Israeli airstrikes. We can get more from journalist Karim El-Gawhary, who's in Beirut. Welcome back, Karim. What else did Naim Qassem have to say?
Well, Naim Qassem, who was the deputy under Hassan Nasrallah, who was, of course, killed by the Israelis, is becoming now more and more the public face of Hezbollah. He is not a military figure. He's a political figure within Hezbollah. He had a few very clear messages in his speech. The first message is, again, he was linking the war in Gaza with the war in Lebanon. He basically said a ceasefire is possible if Israel stops firing at Lebanon and Gaza. Again, Hezbollah makes clear that one of the keys for ending this whole situation is the end of the Gaza war. He said if there is a ceasefire, it will be possible for Israelis to return back to their houses in the north. If not, he said, basically, we will open a new page in this war. He said, we will be not restrained to northern Israel. We will be able to attack any targets within Israel, but with one important limitation. He said, we will try to attack only military targets. And that is something, he said, that's a difference between us and the Israeli army and the Israeli Air Force, who is also targeting civilian targets in Lebanon. It seems like in this speech that this latest attack of Hezbollah, when they were attacking the base of the Golani Brigade in Israel, killing 4 Israeli soldiers, injuring dozens, gave Hezbollah and their supporters certainly a boost of confidence.
Well, Israel has launched fresh airstrikes on the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon. What can you tell us about their likely targets?
Well, not only the Bekaa Valley, they really increased the frequency of airstrikes, not only in the Bekaa Valley, but also in the south of Lebanon. And in addition to that, they're amassing more forces, more ground forces at the Israeli-Lebanese border. I think we can expect a bigger ground invasion possibly in the next days, and this is the preparation. Mind you that by now the UN is saying that Israel issued evacuation orders for villages and towns in Lebanon. Then by now consists a quarter of the country, a quarter of Lebanon.
Israel's Prime Minister says strikes against Hezbollah across Lebanon will not stop, vowing no mercy in its war with the militant group. Benjamin Netanyahu's defiant promise followed an Israeli strike on a Christian-majority village in northern Lebanon, killing at least 21 people. The UN is now calling for a, quote, prompt, independent and thorough investigation into the attack.
Rescue workers deal with the aftermath of this latest airstrike. But this is not Beirut or the southern border area where Hezbollah usually operates. This strike hit the small Christian-majority village of Aitu in northern Lebanon, an area that was thought to be safer. The city's mayor says the strike hit a house that was being rented to displaced families. Meanwhile, in southern Lebanon, Israel ordered residents of 25 villages to evacuate to the north as it expands its operations. It comes as hundreds of mourners attended the funerals of some of the soldiers killed in Sunday's Hezbollah drone attack on an Israeli military base. It was Hezbollah's deadliest attack in Israel since the war in Gaza began a year ago. In a visit to the base where the attack happened, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to keep the pressure on.
We are fighting a difficult war against Iran's axis of evil that seeks to destroy us. They will not succeed. We are continuing to fight. We are paying a painful price, but we have considerable achievements, which we will continue to make. I would like to make it clear, we will continue to strike Hezbollah without mercy everywhere in Lebanon, including Beirut.
Back in Lebanon, mourners also attended a funeral for 10 people killed in Israeli airstrikes. As the death count continues to rise in Lebanon, more than 250,000 people have fled across the border to the relative safety of Syria. And as this war intensifies, these numbers will only get higher.
And journalist Ruth Michaelson joins us now from Beirut. Good to see you, Ruth. From what you're hearing from people, can you give us a sense of the mood in Lebanon, especially given Benjamin Netanyahu's latest statements, latest threats?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Netanyahu's statement about continuing to strike Hezbollah without mercy everywhere in Lebanon, in his words, and mentioning potential further strikes on Beirut. And we also saw, as you mentioned, the strike in the village of Aitu in the far north of Lebanon yesterday, which certainly sends a message to people here that nowhere is safe. And these are some of the latest comments from Netanyahu. We saw last week that he essentially called on the people of Lebanon to rise up against Hezbollah. He combined this with saying, you have an opportunity to save Lebanon before it falls into the abyss of a long war that will lead to the destruction and suffering like we see in Gaza. And I think what this is doing to people in Lebanon, the impression that Netanyahu is trying to give, is the potential to vastly expand Israel's war aims in Lebanon, from fighting Hezbollah in the southern part of the country, focusing on Israelis being able to return to their homes in northern Israel, to really changing the political landscape here, potentially. And this is creating a heavy element of fear. I don't know if you can hear the drone noise that is currently happening around me. This is ever present now in Beirut, across Beirut, no matter which neighborhood you're in. And I just think it's important to realize how poorly Netanyahu's message is being received here. There are certainly groups within this country that don't politically support Hezbollah, but they are looking now to this group to protect them from Israeli attacks. And there are a lot of people here that don't want to see outside influence, whether it's from Iran, whether it's from Israel or from the United States, in who leads their country and decides their fate. And these are people that say they are perfectly capable of deciding that for themselves.
You've made the sense of fear very clear. Do people feel that they can do anything to prepare for what might lie ahead?
Well, I think people's ability to adapt in a crisis, that's something that tends to be quite divided based on their means. So those with the means to do so are traveling up to areas in the mountains around the capital or leaving the country entirely. That means getting what few seats are available now on the national carrier. Those can be very expensive. You might also have seen footage of the national carrier Middle East Airlines landing planes at the Beirut airport while there are airstrikes ongoing on the southern suburbs nearby. There's also a company here that's charging people almost $2,000 to get on a yacht to Cyprus. But people who don't have the means to get on a $2,000 yacht or go to a house in the mountains where rents might be very expensive now. That's certainly something that people talk about. These people who don't have the means, they are fleeing to areas outside of southern Lebanon, outside of Beirut's southern suburbs. An official from the UN Refugee Agency today said that 25% of Lebanon is under Israeli military evacuation orders. We know that the UN has also said that almost 900 government-run makeshift shelters here are full. So that what we see as a result is people sleeping on the street, trying to find somewhere to stay, and all of this in the hope that this all ends very soon and that they can return to their homes, even though we see no indication that it will end soon.
Journalist Ruth Michaelson reporting from Beirut. Ruth, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there.